I built my first business when I was 9 years old with no plan, no money, no coach, no mentor, only a trash bag and a walk to the curb of about 50 feet. By the time I was 13, I turned $1 into 15. And I did all of that living in pay-by-the-week motels from time to time and moving over 36 times, not even counting the same place twice. Today, this is not a business plan. This is not a message on business. This is for the person that's sitting in their car and you're wondering, do I have what it takes? The answer is yes. And today I'm going to share why. Now, I called my mom earlier today to fact check my memory because I was so young. I was 9 years old, as I shared. And we lived in this fourplex in a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri, called Lee Summit. And according to my mom, I was outside and I saw a neighbor that lived in the fourplex next door to us struggling, taking out her trash bag from her front door to about 50 feet to the curb. And I went over there and I said, here, I'll take it for you. And I grabbed her trash bag and I simply walked it to the curb. And she called me back over there. She said, hey, young man, come here. And she took out her little coin purse and she handed me a quarter. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I wonder how many of my neighbors need my help and would be willing to pay me. And that was the launch of my first business looking back. And it's a fun memory to think of. And from time to time, I'll go over in that area and just drive around and go down memory lane. And what I did next is I started knocking on the neighbor's door. And I remember there was a gentleman who lived in a cul-de-sac and he let me use his lawnmower and the gas and to cut his grass for him. And some of the neighbors would also allow me to take out their trash, to cut their grass, to shovel their driveway. It progressed over time. My revelation was I didn't need money in order to make money. I just needed to find a problem and help someone solve the problem. So that continued to grow over the years. And here's the principle. It's about movement. You don't need permission to start. You just need to move. You need to take action. Because this is the truth. Clarity comes from action, not before it. I'm going to say that again. Clarity comes from action, not before it. You don't get ready and then start. You start and then get ready. Now, this progressed. By the time I was 13, a few years later, we moved up into the Seattle, Washington area. And I was hanging out. I believe I was with my brother and two of my buddies. And there's a busy street in Seattle. And on this busy street, there's a McDonald's. There's several boutique stores in this area, of Fred Meyer. And across the street from the McDonald's, there is a used bookstore. It's actually still there. At least the last time I was in Seattle, it was. And this bookstore had a big poster in the window by the busy street. And the poster said something like, "We buy used books." So I had an idea. I went in there and I talked to the gentleman behind the counter. And I said, "Tell me about the used books. What is it you're looking for? How much will you pay?" And he said there's two authors that he's looking for, R.L. Stein and then Stephen King. Now, I had no clue who those guys were. R.L. Stein, come to find out, wrote a series of books that were popular in the 90s called Goosebumps. I couldn't find any of those at the thrift store, but I did find some of the Stephen King books because a few blocks down, there's a massive thrift store that had this huge book selection. And so I thought, I'm going to go over there and find some books. And that's exactly what I did because the books I found at the thrift store were only a quarter each. And so what I did is I took those books from the thrift store that I bought for a quarter. I had $1 and I bought 4 of them. I took them over to that bookstore And he paid me about 15 bucks. And that day I learned to multiply money because I turned $1 into 15. And that was a whole new world for me. And so I remember after that, I treated my brother and my buddies McDonald's on me this time. And what was far worth more than that $15 was the lesson that momentum isn't magic, it's math. And small actions repeated consistently create exponential results. It reminds me of the book by a gentleman named Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called Start with the Why. Or, yeah, he did write Start with the Why, but the book I'm thinking of is actually by Darren Hardy. It's Compound Effect. It's the decisions that you make day after day that compound and build up over time. Because first you make the choice, and then your choice makes you. And when you stack up enough days and enough choices, it's going to lead you to a certain outcome that you get in your life. Here's something that I've noticed. Most people quit before momentum kicks in. The momentum rewards those who keep going. Now, by the time I was about 16, a few years later, we moved a lot. I remember one time laying in bed as an adult. I think I was in my mid-20s, and I thought to myself, how many times did we move up until I was 16? And I laid there in bed and I counted. I counted over 36 times, not counting the same place twice. And ultimately, I moved out when I was about 15 or so. The challenging part was some of the areas and the places that we lived in. Full transparency, we lived in several pay-by-the-week motels that were never in the nicest part of town because they were cheap, and it was just a way of survival, getting through the day in between apartments. We lived in these pay-by-the-week motels, and I remember just feeling unsafe. I remember feeling like this is not where I want to live someday when it's all my choice. I remember seeing the obvious ladies and prostitution. I remember seeing drug deals happen. And I just remember feeling just unsafe. And later I started to become self-conscious to where I felt ashamed and just felt like, just a lot of shame and embarrassment moving into my years in high school and my later teenage years around, 15 or 16-year-olds, just a lot of embarrassment because of the environment I found myself in, really as a kid looking back. And the thing that I remember is that by learning how to multiply the $1 into 15, I thought to myself, someday when I'm older, I'm going to keep doing this and make sure for my family and I, we're not going to find ourselves under and in these circumstances, living in these types of environment. And here's the truth. I wrote this in my notes that my circumstances were unstable, but thankfully, my identity was not tied into my circumstances. And I don't know where you're at today, but I want to let you know that your past does not disqualify you. Your starting point does not determine your ceiling nor your potential. Sure, there's contributing factors, the things that have happened in your life that you had no control over, and maybe you were a victim to, meaning it happened to you, you were too young to do anything about it, and maybe that's part of your story. Yes, there's contributing factors, but there's also determining factors. Determining factors means that the ball is now in your court. What are you going to choose to do about it? So mindset is the difference. It's the difference between I can't because all of the reasons and excuses, and I will even though. At this point professionally, I've had my business for 20 years that's provided for my family. I've been able to serve so many people and take care of them because they've trusted me at the highest level. And I've coached and consulted over 600 business owners, some of them in the startup phase. Others were stuck, working 7 days a week, giving it all they have. And at this point, professionally, in my business, I built a business that's by referral, where it's multiple 6 figures a year in income, working 20 hours or less a week, because the Bible says, redeem the time, meaning that it's wise to buy back your time. By the way, the highest point or the highest purpose of money, my belief, according to the Bible, is to use money to serve people. And so I want to let you know that you don't need money in order to make money. You don't need permission to start. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need the perfect coach. You need movement, because movement creates momentum, and momentum will shift your mindset. You'll start to think differently, and mindset changes everything. Right now, I'm sitting on the deck of our beautiful home on 5 acres. I like to call it our slice of heaven, and I love it. Business has allowed me to, number one, serve so many incredible people, and number two, build a life for my family and I that doesn't look like my past. And I'm so thankful for that. And maybe you find yourself today in a situation or under circumstances you're not proud of, and you're considering what's next for you and maybe even your family. And I'm here to encourage you that if a boy making quarters from a 70-year-old lady living in a fourplex with his mom and his first stepdad could build a business and start making decisions that would change the trajectory of my life, if I can do it, trust me, you can do it. So if this you found helpful, and maybe you know somebody that's going through a challenging time, they're considering launching a business or they're stuck in their business, will you share this video with them? I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.